Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Sit tight, the human warship is about to make history. Admiral Klex Vailron drummed his 4 fingers against the crystalline command console, his secondary heart beating with mild annoyance. The Galactic Defense Center's panoramic displays cast a soft purple glow across his scaled skin as he watched the approaching anomaly with growing irritation. "Commander Zara, please tell me this is some sort of malfunction in our detection systems," he said, mandibles clicking in barely contained frustration, "because if I'm reading this correctly, someone is claiming that a human vessel has breached our outer defense perimeter." Commander Zara Nexus straightened her tentacled form, all 6 of her eyes blinking in rapid succession. "The readings are confirmed, Admiral. Long-range scanners detected the vessel approximately 47 microcycles ago. It matches known human construction patterns." Vailron released a burst of pheromones that filled the command center with the scent of derision. The other officers shifted uncomfortably at their stations but maintained their professional composure. After all, this was the most advanced military installation in the known galaxy. They had quantum-locked shield generators, plasma lance arrays, and gravitational manipulation fields that could tear apart entire fleets, and now they were supposed to be concerned about humans. "Bring up the tactical display," Vailron ordered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Let's all see this terrifying human ship that has the automated defense grid so concerned." The main holographic projection shimmered and expanded, revealing a 3-dimensional image of a vessel that looked like it had been cobbled together from spare parts. Its hull was a patchwork of different materials with visible welding seams that made Valoran's aesthetic sensibilities cry out in protest. That's what triggered a Class 1 alert. Vailron turned to his chief of analytics, Dr. Ren Blackstar, who was busy interfacing with the station's quantum computer through her neural link. "Doctor, please enlighten us. What devastating weapons does this heap of primitive engineering carry? Perhaps they've mastered the art of throwing very large rocks." Dr. Blackstar's cybernetic implants pulsed with blue light as she processed the data. "Admiral, initial scans show inconsistencies. The vessel appears to be powered by what they call a fusion reactor, basically a crude attempt at harnessing stellar processes. However, there's something odd about the energy signatures." "Odd how?" Vailron asked, his interest marginally piqued despite himself. "They don't make sense. The output levels are fluctuating in patterns that defy our understanding of physics, and the hull composition," she paused, her implants flickering, "it's simultaneously registering as both incredibly primitive and impossibly advanced." Vailron waved one of his upper limbs dismissively. "Clearly a sensor malfunction. Humans only achieved faster than light travel a mere century ago. They still use physical controls in their ships, for the Creator's sake. Commander Zara, send out the standard warning package. Remind them that they're violating the space of a Class 5 civilization and should retreat immediately." "Warning package sent, Admiral," Zara reported promptly, "though I feel compelled to mention that our last 3 intelligence reports on human military capabilities have strongly suggested we may be underestimating them." "Please, Commander," Valoran's scales shifted to a shade of amused violet. "I've read those reports. Humans are barely more than clever primates who stumbled onto space travel. Yes, they've had some surprising victories against the Krax hierarchy and the Moravian cluster, but those were clearly flukes, or perhaps," he chuckled, "a sound like grinding crystals, those civilizations were even more incompetent than we thought." The human vessel continued its steady approach, seemingly unconcerned by the warning. "No response to our communication, Admiral," Zara reported, her tentacles twisting in what might have been concern. "How shocking," Vailron replied, stretching languidly in his command chair. "The primitives probably haven't even figured out how to decode our standard transmission protocols. Send it again, this time on all frequencies. Even their crude instruments should be able to pick that up." Dr. Blackstar's implant suddenly flashed red. "Admiral, the vessel's energy signature just changed. It's It's... The massive view screen erupted in a cascade of errors as every sensor trained on the human's ship simultaneously went dark. Valoran's scales involuntarily shifted to a pale green of surprise as he lurched forward in his chair. "What just happened?" he demanded, all traces of sarcasm temporarily forgotten. "Unknown, sir," Dr. Blackstar replied, her cybernetics struggling to process the flood of contradictory data. "But whatever that ship is, it's not what it appears to be." Valoran's primary heart joined his secondary in rapid palpitation as he watched the seemingly primitive vessel continue its inexorable approach toward his command center. For the first time in his distinguished career, a tendril of doubt crept into his mind. Perhaps those intelligence reports deserved a second read after all. Commander Zara's tentacles moved swiftly across her data terminal as she pulled up the historical archives. "Admiral, perhaps we should review the first contact protocols. The humans have shown unexpected behaviors in previous encounters." "Unexpected?" Valeron scoffed, but his scales had not yet returned to their normal hue. "You mean like the time they defeated the Cracks hierarchy's dreadnought fleet with mining vessels?" "Precisely, sir," Dr. Blackstar interjected, her cybernetic implants pulsing rapidly. "The Cracks assumed the human ships were simple resource extraction vehicles. They were wrong. The humans had modified their mining lasers into weapons that cut through crack shields like they weren't even there." Valoran's throat sac expanded slightly, a sign of growing unease. "That was different. The Cracks are technological scavengers who barely understand their own stolen weapon systems. We developed our technology over 50,000 years of careful advancement." The Moravian cluster said something similar, Zara continued, bringing up another holographic display. 3 solar cycles ago, they surrounded Earth's colony on Proxima b with their bioorganic warships. The Moravians gave humans 1 planetary rotation to surrender and? Valeron asked, though he already knew the story. The humans responded by introducing a computer virus into the Moravian neural network. They called it Windows Update. The entire fleet became trapped in an endless restart cycle. Dr. Blackstar's implants flickered with what might have been amusement. The Moravians now refused to approach any human-controlled space. The main display suddenly crackled with energy as the approaching human vessel executed what should have been an impossible maneuver. It phased through their outer sensor grid like it wasn't even there. "How did they?" Valoran's scales rippled with confusion. "Our sensor grid is based on 11-dimensional quantum mechanics. It's the most advanced detection system ever created." "Sir," a junior officer called out, his crystalline exoskeleton vibrating with nervous energy. "We're receiving a transmission from the Coalition of Free Systems. Priority level, absolute." Valeron flexed his shoulder plates in irritation. The Coalition was a loose alliance of species who had previous conflicts with humans. Most of them were considerably less advanced than his own civilization, but protocol demanded he acknowledge their warning. "Put it through," he grumbled. A holographic projection materialized, showing Supreme Commander Zur of the Coalition. Her chitinous face bore the scars of battle, and all 4 of her arms were twitching anxiously. "Admiral Valeron," she began without preamble, "our long-range sensors detected human activity in your sector. Whatever you do, do not underestimate." Yes, Valeron interrupted. "Don't underestimate the primitive apes who still use combustion engines in their ground vehicles. We have everything under control." Zur's compound eyes flashed with panic. "You don't understand. 3 cycles ago, they defeated the swarm consciousness with something they called math rock music played at high volume. Before that, they reprogrammed the synthetic collective's entire robot army using something called cat videos. They are not what they appear to be." The transmission suddenly cut off as the human vessel emitted a pulse of something. The energy signature didn't match anything in their database of known weapons. "Dar. Blackstar," Valeron said, trying to keep his voice steady, "please tell me you figured out what we're dealing with." The cybernetics expert's implants were cycling through colors so rapidly she looked like a malfunctioning light display. Admiral, the ship's hull is now reading as both solid and non-solid simultaneously. It's generating energy patterns that suggest it's operating in 3 different dimensions at once, and sir, I think it just winked at us. Ships can't wink, Valeron snapped. This one did, Dr. Blackstar insisted. The forward sensor array just registered what can only be described as a gravitational wink. Commander Zara's tentacles had tied themselves into nervous knots. Admiral, reviewing the historical data, there's a concerning pattern. Every civilization that has dismissed humans as primitive has subsequently been, well. Been what? Valeron demanded. Thoroughly embarrassed, sir. The humans appear to have developed their technology along completely different lines than any other known species. They don't follow any recognized advancement patterns. The Galactic Science Academy still can't explain how they managed to weaponize something called interpretive dance against the silicon hierarchy. The human vessel was now less than 10,000 units from their primary defense line. It was moving in a way that suggested it was either piloted by a genius, a madman, or both. Surely our superior technology, Valeron began, but his voice trailed off as he watched the ship perform a maneuver that his most advanced combat simulators insisted was impossible. Sir, Dr. Blackstar said quietly, I feel compelled to point out that our superior technology is currently giving me readings that suggest that ship is simultaneously here, not here, and somewhere last Tuesday. Valoran's scales had shifted to an unprecedented shade of worried mauve. The last report he'd read about humans had mentioned something about them having speed-run their technological development by sequence-breaking reality. He dismissed it as translation error at the time. Now he wasn't so sure. Admiral, Commander Zara's voice had taken on an unusually high pitch, the human vessel is dancing. Send another communication attempt, Valeron ordered, his voice betraying a slight tremor. This time use every known language format simultaneously. The command center's communication array hummed as it broadcast the message, please identify yourself and state your intentions. The message repeated in over 10,000 different formats, from quantum-encoded telepathic signals to crude radio waves. The human ship responded by performing what appeared to be a perfect barrel roll while playing something called, Never Gonna Give You Up, on all frequencies. What does it mean? Valeron asked, his scales now cycling through colors faster than the command center's mood lighting. Dr. Blackstar's cybernetic implants were smoking slightly. Sir, according to our cultural database, we've just been subjected to something called a Rick roll. It's either a declaration of war or a mating ritual. Our xenoanthropologists are still debating. Commander Zara had pulled up a classified intelligence report on her screen. Admiral, you need to see this. It's from the Arcturian technocracy's encounter with humans last solar cycle. The holographic display showed footage of a human ship, smaller than the one currently approaching, facing off against an Arcturian battle fleet. The humans had been massively outgunned, outmanned, and surrounded. They lost, of course. Valeron asked hopefully. No, sir. The humans, well, perhaps you should watch. The footage showed the human ship broadcasting what they later identified as Careless Whisper by George Michael. The Arcturian fleet's advanced AI systems had attempted to analyze the saxophone solo and crashed, leaving their ships defenseless. That's not possible, Valeron whispered, his primary heart nearly stopping. The Arcturians use quantum AI. You can't crash a quantum computer with music. The humans called it a vibe check, Dr. Blackstar noted, her implants now displaying error messages in 17 different languages. Apparently, the Arcturian AI failed it. The approaching human vessel suddenly split into 3 identical copies of itself. Finally! Valeron exclaimed. They're using holographic decoys. Standard tactics. Target the original ship's energy signature. Sir, a sensor operator called out, their bioluminescent spots flashing with distress. All three ships are generating identical energy signatures, and according to these readings, they're all the original. That's not how reality works. Vailron shouted, his professional demeanor cracking. I don't think the humans got that memo, sir, Commander Zara observed dryly. Another emergency transmission cut through their communications, this time from the collective of enlightened beings. The holographic figure that appeared was High Philosopher Nexus Prime, their crystalline form vibrating with urgent frequencies. Admiral Vailron. Thank the eternal void we reached you. Whatever you do, don't attempt to apply logic to human behavior. We lost an entire philosophy council trying to analyze their memes. They still haven't recovered. Before Vailron could respond, the human ships did something that made every scientific instrument in the command center simultaneously register an error message and file for early retirement. Dr. Blackstar, Vailron said carefully, please tell me you're seeing something different than I am. If you're seeing the ship turn itself inside out while remaining right side in, then juggle probability fields while humming what appears to be the final countdown, then no, Admiral. I am seeing exactly what you're seeing. Valoran's mind flashed back to other intelligence reports he dismissed as exaggeration or propaganda, the humans defeating the quantum harmonists by introducing them to something called dad jokes, the time they repelled an invasion by broadcasting their cat videos to the hive mind of Riel 7, causing it to spend 3 years doing nothing but watching felines knock objects off elevated surfaces. Sir, Commander Zara interrupted his increasingly panicked thoughts, I found something else in the classified files. A psychological analysis of human warfare tactics. Read it, Vailron ordered, watching as the human ships began what appeared to be a synchronized swimming routine through four-dimensional space. According to this report, humans view advanced technology the same way a young offspring views a new toy. They immediately try to find ways to use it that its creators never intended. They call this process, messing around and finding out. The report went on to detail various encounters where humans had, through what appeared to be random experimentation combined with something they called throwing science at the wall and seeing what sticks, achieved results that more advanced civilizations had deemed impossible. There's a note here from the Galactic Science Academy, Dr. Blackstar added, her implants now displaying the spinning wheel of eternal contemplation. It says humans are the only known species to treat physics less as a set of universal laws and more as a set of guidelines that are fun to break. A junior officer suddenly called out an alarm. Admiral. The human ship is. Spit it out, officer. It's approaching our quantum-locked shield generators while playing something called yakety sax, and sir, I don't know how to describe this in technical terms, but it appears to be approaching us sideways through yesterday. Vailron felt his scales begin to molt from stress. This was precisely the sort of situation they hadn't covered at the Advanced Military Academy. How do you defend against an enemy that treated the fundamental laws of reality as mere suggestions? Sir, Commander Zara's voice had taken on the tone of someone accepting their fate. I found one last intelligence report. It's from the Temporal Guardians themselves. The Temporal Guardians? The most advanced civilization in known space. What do they say about humans? Zara's tentacles trembled as she read, warning to all spacefaring civilizations, do not attempt to predict human behavior using standard logic matrices. They have somehow achieved quantum uncertainty on a macroscopic scale through sheer force of what they call, doing it for the memes. The laws of causality are more like guidelines to them. Also, they rickroll people. The audacity. The human ship, now existing in 5 quantum states simultaneously while performing what appeared to be a TikTok dance challenge through spacetime, was less than 1,000 units from their primary defense line. Admiral, Dr. Blackstar said, her voice unusually calm, I believe I finally figured out what we're dealing with. What? Humans aren't primitive at all. They're just chaos incarnate with faster-than-light travel. As if to prove her point, the ship briefly transformed itself into a giant spacefaring rubber duck, honked at them in Morse code, then resumed its previous form. As Valoran's scales had settled on a shade of existential crisis purple, he murmured, maybe we should have read those intelligence reports more carefully. Activate all defensive systems.